Get ready for a deep dive into the world of a real superhero in the animal kingdom.
A superhero.
You'll see, we're talking about the Indus River Dolphin.
Ah, fascinating creatures.
Truly. And we're going to be exploring all sorts of amazing facts about them using excerpts from the Indus River Dolphin, a flagship species of freshwater ecosystems.
Sounds like a great source.
Oh, it's packed with insights. Okay, so picture this. A dolphin that's practically blind.
Blind. How do they survive?
That's the incredible part. They use echolocation to navigate the murky Indus River.
Like a bat.
Exactly.
Oh.
They emit these clicks and listen for the echoes, creating a sound map of their surroundings.
Right. It's like a real-life sonar system.
Right. It's mind-boggling. But it's not just about this amazing adaptation. It's about what their survival tells us about the health of the entire river system.
It's true. They're like a barometer for the ecosystem.
Exactly. So let's paint a picture of this dolphin for our listener. What do they look like?
Well, imagine a creature perfectly adapted to a world of darkness and swirling currents.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
They have this long, almost beak-like snout and a surprisingly small dorsal fin.
I'm picturing it now. Perfectly streamlined for those shallow, murky waters.
Precisely. And their near-blindness, that's not a defect.
You're saying it's an advantage?
In a way, yes. Over countless generations, their eyes have become practically useless in the muddy river water.
So they've adapted to their environment by relying on other senses.
Exactly. Echolocation is their superpower.
That makes sense. But I imagine navigating in near darkness must still be incredibly challenging, even with echolocation.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. They're using sound to map out their surroundings, to find food, avoid obstacles.
And to socialize.
Even that. It's remarkable. But imagine trying to do that in a habitat that's increasingly fragmented by human activity.
Right, because we've built dams, changed the river flow.
All of that disrupts their sonar map.
It's like trying to read a map with pieces missing.
Yeah.
So how has this impacted their range? Historically, where were they found?
Well, their historical range was vast.
How vast are we talking?
It spanned the entire Indus River system, reaching parts of Pakistan, India, and even Afghanistan.
Wow, that's a huge territory.
It was. Sadly, today, they're mainly confined to about 1,300 kilometers of the Indus River.
Primarily in Pakistan.
Yes, primarily in Pakistan.
That's a dramatic reduction.
Right.
What caused such a drastic shrinkage of their habitat?
A number of factors, but mainly the construction of dams and barrages along the river.
Built for irrigation and flood control, right?
Exactly.
But they've ended up chopping up the dolphin's habitat into these isolated pockets,
Like islands of suitable habitat.
surrounded by an inhospitable landscape.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how these fragmented populations even survive.
It's a constant struggle, and one major issue is limited gene flow between these isolated groups.
Meaning there's less genetic diversity.
Right, and that makes them incredibly vulnerable to disease or environmental change.
That's worrying.
It is. It's like having a limited toolbox when you're faced with a complex problem.
So their survival is even more precarious because of this fragmentation.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there are the other threats they face. Well, we'll get into those more in a bit, but habitat loss is a big one.
Due to water extraction.
For irrigation and industry, yes. Less water in the river means less space for the dolphins.
And it also concentrates pollutants, right?
Yeah.
Making the remaining water less hospitable.
Precisely. And then there's the impact of fishing practices.
So we're talking about things like bycatch.
Exactly, where dolphins get accidentally entangled in nets. It's a huge problem, especially in those murky waters.
Where visibility is limited.
Right. It's almost like they're invisible, even to the fishermen trying to avoid them.
That's a good way to put it. Sad, but true. Are there any other direct threats to these dolphins?
Well, in some areas, they're still hunted deliberately, or their oil is used in traditional medicine.
Oh, that's heartbreaking to hear. It sounds like these amazing creatures are facing an uphill battle.
They are, but there's still hope.
Okay, good. I was hoping you'd say that.
We've talked about the problems, but there are incredible people working tirelessly to protect these dolphins.
Okay, that's a much-needed dose of optimism. So who are these heroes working to save the Indus River Dolphin? Tell me more.
Well, in Pakistan, for a start, the Indus River Dolphin is legally protected.
Okay, that's a good start. What else is being done?
Organizations like the World Wildlife Fund, or WWF, are doing incredible work.
I've heard of them. What's their approach?
They're focused on habitat restoration, community engagement.
Community engagement, what does that involve?
Well, it's all about recognizing that conservation can't happen in isolation. The communities living along the Indus depend on the river, just as the dolphin does.
Right, so it's about finding ways for people and nature to coexist.
Exactly. So WWF focuses on educating those communities about the importance of the dolphin and finding ways to coexist sustainably.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But how do they actually engage these communities? What does that look like in practice?
It's a multifaceted approach. They work with schools.
Like educational programs for kids?
Yes, but also with local leaders, fishermen, farmers.
A broad range of stakeholders.
Right. Part of it is raising awareness about the dolphin's plight, its cultural significance, the role it plays in the ecosystem.
Because if people understand the value of something, they're more likely to protect it.
Exactly. But you're right, it's not always easy to convince people to change their ways, especially when livelihoods are at stake.
That's what I was thinking. How do they address those concerns? Because people need to make a living.
Absolutely. And that's where finding solutions that work for both people and nature comes in.
Give me an example.
Well, for example, they've been introducing modified fishing nets that reduce bycatch.
Oh, so that protects the dolphins while still allowing fishermen to fish.
Exactly. And it helps ensure sustainable fishing in the long run, which is good for everyone.
That's smart. A win-win situation.
It is. But it goes beyond just modifying nets. They also help communities explore alternative livelihoods.
Like what?
Things like ecotourism that don't rely on exploiting the river's resources.
So creating economic opportunities that are tied to the health of the river and the survival of the dolphin.
Precisely. It's a long-term strategy, but one that has the potential to make a real difference.
I like that approach. Thinking about the long term, what other efforts are underway to protect the Indus River dolphin?
Well, there are the protected areas, which act as safe havens for the dolphins.
So areas where human activities are restricted,
Or at least carefully managed, yes.
giving the dolphins a chance to thrive.
Exactly. It's like creating these pockets of sanctuary where they can hopefully recover and reproduce.
That makes sense. But these protected areas are still isolated, right?
Right.
Wouldn't connecting those fragmented habitats be even more crucial?
That's a really important point. You're right. Protected areas alone are not a silver bullet.
So what's the solution?
Ideally, we'd establish corridors between these protected areas.
Allowing for greater gene flow.
Exactly. A more robust population overall. But that requires collaboration,
Between.
not just different communities, but also between governments.
Right, because the Indus flows through multiple countries.
Exactly.
So the political landscape adds another layer of complexity to this whole thing.
It does, but there are some encouraging examples of collaboration.
Right.
The Indus River Dolphin Conservation Project is one.
What's that?
It's a joint initiative between Pakistan and India.
So a cross-border effort.
Exactly. It aims to share knowledge, coordinate research, and implement conservation strategies across borders.
Okay, so we've got these various initiatives in place.
Yes.
Community engagement, protected areas, transboundary collaboration. But are they actually making a difference?
It's still early days, but there are glimmers of hope.
Tell me more. What kind of results are we seeing?
In some areas, we're seeing an increase in dolphin sightings.
That's good news.
It is. It suggests that populations might be stabilizing or even increasing slightly.
So these efforts are not in vain.
Absolutely not. And then there's the rediscovery of a population in the Bees River in India.
Wait, they found a whole new population. Where did that come from?
It was amazing. It wasn't the result of some high-tech expedition or anything.
So how did they find them?
Local fishermen reported sightings.
That's incredible. So it really highlights the importance of involving communities in conservation.
It really does. It also reminds us that even in the most fragmented and degraded habitats, life finds a way.
That's a powerful message of resilience. But I imagine these conservation efforts are facing many challenges.
Sure, plenty.
Like, what are some of the biggest hurdles they have to overcome?
Funding is always a major hurdle.
Makes sense. These projects need long-term commitment.
Exactly. And then there's the challenge of navigating that complex socio-political landscape we talked about earlier. Water is a precious resource, and conflicts over its use can make conservation efforts incredibly difficult.
Right. So it's not just about saving the dolphins. It's about addressing this whole web of interconnected issues.
You got it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's about changing human behavior.
It's one thing to create protected areas and implement all these measures, but it's another thing entirely to shift mindsets.
You're absolutely right. It's about inspiring people to become stewards of the river.
It sounds like a monumental task.
It is, but it's not impossible. Education and awareness raising are crucial.
So teaching people about the dolphins, about the river.
Exactly. showcasing the beauty and importance of the Indus River dolphin, its connection to the health of the entire river system. That's how we foster a sense of pride and responsibility.
It's about making people fall in love with the river and its inhabitants.
Precisely. And it goes beyond just facts and figures, too.
What do you mean?
Storytelling, art, cultural traditions.
Ah, so tapping into that emotional connection that people have to the river.
Exactly. Weaving the dolphin story into the cultural fabric of the region.
It's a beautiful idea, but it sounds like a long-term game.
It is, but it's a game worth playing. The fate of the Indus River dolphin is ultimately in our hands.
That's a powerful statement.
It's true. By supporting conservation efforts, making informed choices, advocating for change, we can help ensure that this incredible creature continues to grace the waters of the Indus.
For generations to come, hopefully.
Hopefully. And, it's not just about the dolphin itself.
It's about the whole ecosystem.
Exactly. Its fate is intertwined with the health of the entire river. So by saving the dolphin, we're also safeguarding a vital resource for millions of people and countless other species.
You've painted a vivid picture of the challenges and the triumphs of these conservation efforts. It's inspiring to see so much dedication and passion going into protecting this species.
It is, and it makes you wonder, what else can we learn from this species?
What new discoveries might be waiting just beneath the surface?
Exactly, and that's something we'll be exploring in part 3 of our deep dive.
Stay tuned.
It's a multifaceted approach. They work with schools, yes, but also with local leaders, fishermen, and farmers.
So it's not just kids.
No, not at all. It's about reaching everyone who interacts with the river in some way.
Makes sense. And what are they teaching them? What's the message?
Part of it is raising awareness about the dolphin's plight, its cultural significance, the role it plays in the ecosystem.
Right, because if people understand the value of something...
They're more likely to protect it.
Exactly.
Mm.
But, I imagine it's not always easy to convince people to change their ways.
It's not, especially when livelihoods are at stake.
That's what I was thinking. How do they address those concerns? Because people need to make a living.
Absolutely. It's about finding solutions that work for both people and nature.
Okay. I like that solutions, not just problems. So give me an example. How are they doing that?
For example, they've been introducing modified fishing nets that reduce bycatch.
Ah, so the dolphins don't get caught.
Exactly. It protects the dolphins while still allowing fishermen to fish.
Smart. And it helps ensure sustainable fishing in the long run.
Exactly, which benefits everyone.
It's a win-win situation. I like that.
It is, but it goes beyond just modifying nets. They also help communities explore alternative livelihoods.
Alternative livelihoods? Like what?
Things like ecotourism.
Ah, I see.
Things that don't rely on exploiting the river's resources.
So creating economic opportunities that are tied to the health of the river.
And the survival of the dolphin.
I see. It's a long-term strategy, but...
It has the potential to make a real difference.
It does. What other efforts are underway to protect the Indus River dolphin? We talked about community engagement, but what else?
Well, there are the protected areas.
Ah, yes, the safe havens.
Exactly. These areas are specifically designated for conservation.
So less pollution, less fishing pressure.
Right, a chance for the dolphins to thrive.
But these protected areas are still isolated.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be better to connect them somehow?
That's a really important point. You're right, protected areas alone are not enough.
So what's the solution? How do you connect these fragmented habitats?
Ideally, we'd establish corridors between these protected areas.
Corridors, like wildlife crossings.
Sort of. It's more about creating a continuous stretch of suitable habitat.
Allowing for greater gene flow between the population.
Exactly. A more robust population overall. But that requires collaboration.
Between?
Not just different communities, but also between governments.
Right, because the Indus flows through multiple countries. So the political landscape adds another layer of complexity.
It does. But there are some encouraging examples of collaboration.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, the Indus River Dolphin Conservation Project is one.
Tell me more about that. What is it?
It's a joint initiative between Pakistan and India.
Oh, wow. So a cross-border effort.
Exactly. It aims to share knowledge, coordinate research, and implement conservation strategies across borders.
Okay, so we've got these various initiatives in place: community engagement, protected areas, transboundary collaboration. But are they actually making a difference?
It's still early days, but there are glimmers of hope.
Glimmers of hope. Okay, I'll bite. What kind of results are we seeing?
In some areas, we're seeing an increase in dolphin sightings.
Oh, that's good news, right?
It is. It suggests that populations might be stabilizing or even increasing slightly.
So these efforts are not in vain?
Absolutely not. And then there's the rediscovery of a